Hi, Recap here. Today I'm going to explain a gripping mystery thriller movie called The Invisible. But before we dive in, let me ask you this. What would you do if you were alive, yet no one could see or hear you? If your own existence slipped into the shadows while a haunting secret held the key to your survival? Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. The story begins with Nick Powell, a high school senior who is about to graduate with flying colors. However, his life is far from perfect. After his father's abrupt passing a few years ago, his mother, Diane, took charge of everything. She steadied the finances and began micromanaging her son's life. Diane wants Nick to follow a safe and traditional career path, but Nick, who excels in studies, is passionate about writing and literature. In fact, Nick dreams of skipping his graduation ceremony to attend a writer's workshop in London. However, his mother dismisses his aspirations. One morning, Nick asks her about the workshop while she's sitting at the dining table casually reading the newspaper. Her dismissive reply crushes his hopes. She wants him to focus on a career in America. Frustrated, Nick heads to school, cycling away from his mother's overbearing presence. At school, we see another side of Nick. He's not just a star student, but also a hustler, doing homework for his classmates in exchange for cash. Meanwhile, Nick's best friend, Peter Egan, is in trouble. He's being bullied in the school bathroom by Annie Newton, a tough and ferocious gang leader, and her crew. Annie is involved in petty crimes and sold a stolen phone to Peter, demanding payment. When Peter can't pay, she threatens to cut off his finger. Nick decides to step in. During lunchtime, he approaches Annie's group and offers to pay for the phone. He places a wad of cash on the table, but Annie doesn't respond kindly. Instead, Nick mocks her, saying she is an emotionally broken person. Furious, Annie tries to attack him. They're soon dragged to the principal's office. While the principal scolds them, Nick sarcastically jokes that Annie finds him attractive. The principal's response is cold. He warns Nick not to waste his time on people with no future. Meanwhile, we get a glimpse into Annie's home life. Her household is a mess. She lives with her father, stepmother, and younger brother, Victor. Her stepmother spends her days smoking and watching TV, completely ignoring her responsibilities. Annie's father is distant and uninvolved. Annie's anger explodes when she finds out her brother hasn't been fed. She berates her stepmother and storms to her room, showing us the pain that fuels her rebellious behavior. That night, Nick confides in Peter. He hands Peter a book containing a hidden plane ticket to London. Nick reveals his plans to secretly attend the writer's workshop. He explains how his mother's suffocating control has pushed him to this decision. Meanwhile, Annie spends the evening with her boyfriend, Marcus Boehm. They commit a series of petty crimes, including stealing jewelry and a car. The next day, things take a turn. Annie is arrested after Marcus tips off the police about her crimes. Nick's friend Peter accidentally sees Annie hiding the stolen necklace in her locker, and Annie becomes convinced that Peter snitched on her. Seeking revenge, Annie and her gang attack Peter. Terrified, Peter falsely accuses Nick of informing the police. Annie's rage shifts to Nick. At a house party, Nick decides to stay in town instead of flying to London. As he leaves the party, Annie and her gang ambush him. They beat him mercilessly, leaving him unconscious in the woods. Thinking he's dead, they hide his body in a storm drain. What they don't realize is that Nick is still alive, but in a state of out-of-body experience. His spirit wakes up the next morning confused and unable to interact with anyone. He watches in horror as the search for his missing body begins. As detectives close in on the truth, Nick discovers a shocking twist. Although no one can see or hear him, Annie seems to sense his presence. Her guilt grows as she realizes the depth of her actions. In a final act of redemption, Annie risks her life to help the authorities find Nick's body. She calls the police and provides the location of his body at a dam. However, Marcus, seeking revenge, shoots Annie. Gravely wounded, she still manages to lead the cops to Nick. Nick's body is recovered and rushed to the hospital. His life hangs by a thread. Annie, bleeding and broken, stumbles into the ICU and begs Nick's spirit for forgiveness. As she passes away, Nick's spirit returns to his body, bringing him back to life. The movie ends with Nick visiting Annie's younger brother, offering him the kindness and support she never received.